Do you still exist? I was astounded by what I saw when I went to my son's residence. I gasped when I was met with a startling sight in my son's home. There, shackled and malnourished, was my missing 5-year-old grandchild in the living room. The room was filled with discarded plastic bottles and empty bread bags. I hurried to offer him water in my hurry, but he angrily objected, saying, "Give it to my sister first." "Your sibling? Who is this woman?" Perplexed, I asked. Then I heard a baby's weak screams coming from a corner of the room. Before long, the startling reality was revealed. I made up my mind to punish the hell out of whoever it was who made my grandchild go through this. "Do you want to lend me money again?" I sounded off over the phone to my son in a frustrated tone. My spouse went away at the age of 62 3 years ago. I've been living alone ever since. I never had any financial issues because I worked for a long time and received a sizable inheritance from my husband. But for now, my son Thomas, who moved out already, is my biggest worry. Even as a working adult, he has always been irresponsible. He frequently demonstrated bad work ethics, carried work-related materials home, and slept in excessively. His work history was characterized by frequent job changes and sporadic requests for financial assistance. Even though I was disappointed in my own son, I couldn't give up on him entirely because of my familial ties. Suddenly one day, Thomas and a woman arrived at our house. "Mom, I'm going to marry this girl." Startled, I greeted the attractive young woman. I said, "Hello, I'm Ain." "Ain, nice to meet you. However, getting hitched so quickly? It surprises me." Thomas, who was chewing gum, laughed. "Well, what can you do when you get pregnant?" She then said, "I'm 4 months pregnant," and gave her belly a little pat. Despite my amazement, I managed to offer my congratulations and bid my son and his spouse farewell. Pregnancy, despite the altered order, is a pleasant event. I'm wondering if they too could properly raise a child because I'm going to have a grandchild. I felt conflicted. When I finally went to see Thomas and his family at their house, I was shocked. The interior appeared to have been looted by a thief. There were cup noodle cups and empty convenience shop meal containers all over the place. I was compelled to cry out, "What in the world is this mess? Are you eating healthily, Anne? Now it's more than just your body. Shall we cook together now that I have some veggies?" My daughter-in-law, who had a slightly bigger tummy, twisted her face in response. "Ugh, cooking is such a hassle," was her reply. "But you need proper nutrition," I started to add, but Thomas cut me off abruptly. "An annoying mother-in-law who nags all the time won't be like you know. Quit making fun of my wife." "I have no intent of doing that," I said. I brought some veggies, and Anne pushed them toward me. "Please don't make needless comments. I really don't need this kind of thing," she continued. "You really irritate me." That day I had no choice but to silently withdraw under their scathing condemnation. When the time came for her to give birth, the two of them came to show me the child. My expression softened as I gazed at my grandchild swaddled in a blanket. "How sweet." "I take it that it's a boy. What is his name?" "Harry is his name." "But Mom, you have something to give us, don't you?" "Yeah, well, you're correct. It's a modest present for the new baby." I gave the envelope to her. Anne grabbed it quickly and looked inside. "Tom, there's $1,300 in here," she cried out. My son smiled. "Fantastic. Perhaps I should pamper myself." My son and daughter-in-law didn't seem to be listening when I tried to tell them to spend the money for the baby. My son then turned to face me. "You know, Mom, it's getting tight in here with the baby and everything. We are considering moving into your empty house." At the time, I had recently moved into a fairly priced apartment from the house that I shared with my spouse. We were debating whether to rent it out or sell the house. Money is undoubtedly needed to raise children, and maybe having a home would allow for more carefree parenting. Thinking about that, I gave a nod. I recognize. You are free to occupy the space and pay no rent. My youngster said, I'm grateful. Should we relocate the following month? But Anne, who had listened to all of this, said something. I heard her say, but please don't come to our house. Surprised, I stumbled and said, Huh? Please leave us alone. We don't want any interference, Thomas went on. I comprehend, I answered. As a result, I was only able to go to my son and daughter-in-law's home when it was absolutely necessary. I would sometimes get in touch with them to go out to dinner, and when I did, they would grudgingly let me see Harry, but it was obvious they would rather be left alone. My grandchild was nevertheless developing nicely, and had even begun referring to me as Grandma. But as usual, right before Harry turned 4, I got a message from my son telling me that I wanted to bring Harry's snack when I messaged him. Anne doesn't want to see you anymore, he stated. Please stop doing this and avoid visiting our home. You are unable to enter as we have changed the locks. His biased remark shocked me and made me angry. However, I opted to watch the scenario for a little, in case I accidentally insulted Anne without recognizing it. But in the process, I lost track of when I should have been at my son's place, and eventually stopped going entirely. Every now and again, for whatever reason, I would get hesitant, terse responses from Thomas. Harry is 5 years old already, is he not? I hope all is good with him. I carried on with my lonely life in spite of my concerns. Then one day I received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end said, I would like to request repayment of your son's debt. When I answered. After some more discussion, I realized that my son had unilaterally added me as a co-guarantor. I had previously been requested for financial assistance, but I had never anticipated anything like this. I tried to get in touch with Thomas right away, but I got no response. Normally, after some time, I would get a response, but this time was different. I went to my son's place, frustrated. I hit the intercom button, but nobody picked up. I called several times, but the line never went through. Everything stayed the same, even when I shifted the times of my trips. This continued for a few days before I started to worry. Is it possible that they vanished? In what location are they? I looked around for any hints. Thomas had quit. They told me when I went to his place of employment. The neighbors had no idea where they were either. It was already a full week after my first visit. I thought about calling the police, but I thought I should try their residence one more time first. I hit the intercom button, but nothing came out. It was locked and I could not open the front door. I sighed and turned to go when I heard a slight thump coming from within the home. It seemed like something had moved. In desperation, I cried out, Is there anyone inside? Please reveal your face. However, no one replied. But I was attracted by the sound coming from inside, and I wondered if I could enter the house somehow. At that moment, I saw something I had missed the last time I was there. The garden-side casement window's latch was open. I went in nervously and saw something that made me scream in terror. My 5-year-old grandson, Harry, was crouching and chained in such position. Are you alive? I cried out and hurried over to his side. Harry was surrounded by broken plastic bottles and empty bread bags in the dilapidated room. Grandma, did you come to rescue me? He muttered. What in the world is going on here? Let's get you some water first. I ran to get some water and tried to give it to Harry, who was still in his chain. Then he let out a cry. Give it to my sister first. Your sister? Who's your sister? In the next moment, I heard a feeble cry from the corner of the room. As I turned my gaze in that direction, I accidentally dropped the cup I was holding. To my astonishment, there lay an about 3-month-old baby. The shock of discovering this infant's existence overwhelmed me more than the distressing sight of my grandson, Harry. Both Harry and the baby appeared weakened. Desperate to help, I unfastened Harry's chain, placed him and the baby in the car, and rushed to the hospital. The examination results indicated that both individuals were suffering from malnutrition. When the doctor asked, "May I inquire about the circumstances?" I was unable to respond because I hadn't been involved with my son and daughter-in-law for some time. Harry and the baby were scheduled to be hospitalized for a few days, and subsequently, the police arrived after receiving a report from the hospital. When questioned by the police, I honestly conveyed that my son and daughter-in-law were missing. Harry, who was receiving intravenous fluids, was also asked various questions, but he appeared too frightened to say anything. After the police left, I approached my visibly calmer grandchild and asked, "Where are Mom and Dad?" They said they were going abroad. They packed their big bags and left. What Harry began to speak in fragments about the situation, Mimi, my granddaughter, was born about 4 months ago. Harry was taught how to prepare milk and change diapers, and he took care of her. Then, an unsettling revelation followed. Harry was told, "We'll keep you tethered to the care of your sister so you won't escape before leaving on a trip. Even if the doorbell rings," I was told not to answer. As I stood there, frozen and covering my mouth, my grandchild burst into tears. Mimi had learned to roll over, and during one of Harry's naps, she managed to venture out of his reach. My trembling grandchild confessed, "I didn't know what to do, and I was so scared." I held him tightly as tears streamed down his face. Once I confirmed that Harry was asleep, I returned to the house where my son's family lived, intending to retrieve their belongings. I still wanted to think that Thomas and his wife were real at that point. Did they actually leave the kids behind and travel overseas? It is not possible. Harry must have misinterpreted something. A trip brochure on the table caught my attention as I was about to depart after packing the grandchildren's change of clothes into a bag. The cover said, "Elegant 2-week overseas cruise." I shook as I picked it up. A single sheet of paper with our travel itinerary for the two of us peeled out from between its pages. The congrats for making it through the delivery journey were extremely specific, mentioning that the money source was borrowed and that an elderly hag served as a co-guarantor. When I realized they had taken a trip, I was enraged to have put my grandchildren through this while they were merely taking a vacation. It is not human. I will never be able to forgive them, whether or not it is my son. I decided to give them a severe punishment. It was evident from looking over their itinerary that they were due back 3 days later. I got up and went to take care of stuff without thinking twice. 3 days later, I watched from the darkness outside their home as Thomas and Eileen turned, beaming with pride as they dragged bulky suitcases. Whoa, that was a lot of fun. Additionally, the food was excellent. Yes, it was very amazing. I appreciate you taking me, Tom. I'm not ready to go back yet. Ugh, let's go out soon again. They were talking as they turned the corner to the street where our house was, and they froze in disbelief. What's going on here, hey? What took place? Everything they owned had been hauled out and piled up in front of the house. I said just this, in a daze of shock and shock. It was me in front of the two of them. "Did you enjoy your trip?" Thomas seemed surprised to see me when I inquired, "What the heck is going on, old hag?" "I'm asking if the overseas trip that subjected your own children to such experiences was enjoyable." My son and daughter-in-law cringed at the sound of my harsh voice, but they quickly counterattacked. "Did we not warn you to stay away from our house? Did you simply walk in?" I exhaled. I would not have continued if I hadn't been unintentionally appointed a co-guarantor, and I gave in when I saw that window open. Furthermore, I am the owner of this house. So, is there a problem? Eileen appeared surprised by the change in her expression. The in-law's daughter cried out, "Wait a second, where are the kids? Let's examine them." I answered, "The kids are in the hospital right now. The hospital is taking care of them." Their expressions suddenly showed surprise when they heard my response. "You provided them with food and drink, but not enough of either. They were out of supplies when I found them. Hospitalization was unavoidable due to their inadequate dietary status." I went on. "In addition, Mimi has mastered the art of rolling over and has moved out of Harry's grasp while wearing a chain. She might not have survived if I hadn't found her in time." Eileen's embarrassed look was quite visible when I spoke harshly, but Thomas gave me a hard time. "It's okay, since in the end, they're still living. But that's all about the house for now. Then, why are the possessions outside?" "I have no intention of allowing you to live here after such heinous acts," I said. "Please go. I've chosen to list this house for sale." My son and daughter-in-law were astonished to hear this and started berating me. "Old hag, stop being so foolish. Such despotism is not going to stand," I calmly retorted. "Even if there is a home, you won't be able to return for a while." The son and daughter-in-law simultaneously yelled, "What?" at that moment. Just then, the far-off cry of a police siren got closer. If you answered, "Did you report us?" then they have. "I handled it earlier since the police told me to tell them when you got back after your kids were brought to the hospital," I stated matter-of-factly, maintaining the same look. My daughter-in-law started to quiver, and her face went pale, and I stared. "What should we do, Tom? Will we be taken into custody? Dealing with the police is more than I can handle." Thomas clutched to me happily at that moment. "Mom, please help us to resolve this. Tell them we're not guilty. We'll perform better going forward, I swear. Please." Tears and mucus stained Eileen's face as she spoke. "Please, I beg you." And so, with unflinching resolve, I made my decision. "I will not pardon you. I cut all links to my family today. There is no denying the crime you have committed against your children. Think about it and offer an apology." The son and daughter-in-law mumbled as they sagged in their chairs. However, a police vehicle pulled up right then, and I observed them being brought away with a detached sense. Following their police interrogation, Thomas and Eileen were found guilty. They spent a considerable amount of time in custody, and even when they were eventually freed, they had nowhere to go. I filed for custody of my 2 grandchildren through the judicial system. My son and daughter-in-law opposed it, but I eventually won because their actions were scrutinized. They currently reside in an unstable, dilapidated flat after moving far away. It's doubtful that they'll find steady work again after this occurrence, considering the media attention it received. However, I don't feel sorry for them. However, I am raising my 2 grandkids with all of my heart. Mimi is at her cute phase and has started talking. Harry assists with home tasks. Despite my busy life, I feel that every day is meaningful because of my grandchildren. I'll keep up my health maintenance and try my hardest for these priceless grandchildren. How did you come upon this tale? Please think about subscribing to our channel if you liked it. Till then, in our upcoming video,